right, welcome back to Draws and Fades, episode 96, preview of the Wells Fargo Championship at TPC Potomac in Potomac, Maryland. I'm your host, Owen Vrabel, joined by my co-host, Matthew Miller.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back.
And producer, Nick Boss.
What's going on, fellas? Good to see you guys.
Good to see you, boys. Little two-week hiatus, but we're back and got a nice little exciting stretch of golf coming up. And we are partnered with Rotoballer in 2022, so make sure to win big in 2022 with Rotoballer.com's PGA Premium Pass. Are you ready to dominate? Rotoballer's premium DFS package includes exclusive tools, DFS cheat sheets, research stations, and our lineup optimizer, and so much more to help you win big. For a limited time, get your PGA Premium Pass for 50% off using promo code DNF10 for another 10% discount. Just visit rotoballer.com/radio to sign up today and start rotoballing like a boss. So like I mentioned, 2-week hiatus, Zurich Classic, won by Cantlay and Xander. Not super appealing, obviously not great odds for those guys. And then Jon Rahm wins last week at the Mexico Open. He went off at 5-1 or less. So kind of a couple weeks that, I'm sure not having too much exposure feels pretty good considering that the favorites had some great finishes and we wouldn't have probably picked an outright anyway. So that's nice. And now we're back. Wells Fargo Championship. So we'll give you a course preview at TPC Potomac. This tournament typically played at Quail Hollow, but we will be seeing Quail Hollow in a few months for the President's Cup. So that's why it's being played at TPC Potomac this year. It has hosted this event a couple times in the past. So we'll give you our strategies this week for our betting and one and done. Give the odds list on FanDuel. Not the best field in terms of the elite players. I think Rory and Answer are really the only two players inside the top 20 in the official world golf ranking, but we do have 15 of the top 50. So maybe one of those weeks to look towards the middle tier, see what guys are playing well. So we'll get into the odds list on FanDuel, give you top 10s, top 20s thoughts, and as always, our one and done picks as well, which I'm still hanging around, boys. I'm 318th in the Mayo Cup currently. I had Cam Champ last week. Could have been great, but Matt Miller, our guy, did pick Jon Rahm last week in the one and done, so he's kind of feeling like he's back in it.
I feel back, yeah. I was kind of on life support going into that, so I'm not in a really good spot, but I'm back to life. Another winner. I could be back in the mix.
You want to talk about life support? This guy had his pulled already, I think. I wish I could just donate my measly, small chunk of change to you guys and just help the cause, but alas, I'm doing no one.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool if you could like you hadn't used a golfer and I got to use someone twice and just took them from you or something,
That'd be nice. I'd be down for it. I'm for the boys, but unfortunately my hands are tied by my own shitty decisions.
So we'll get into that. But yeah, it's good to be back. Like I said, not the most overwhelming field in terms of talent, but I think the odds list has given some decent odds for, some potential long shots I think are in play this week. And Rory McIlroy is the, heavy favorite. He's won the Wells Fargo before. He's going to go off at under 10-1, but we'll give you our thoughts on that once we get there. Not much to recap about the Mexico Open last week, I don't think. Jon Rahm probably should have won by more. He had a 2-shot lead going into Sunday, and there was not much pressure. Kitayama played well all week, and him and Tony Finau ended up finishing one shot off at -16. But Finau he shot 8 under on Sunday to tie a course record, so he kind of came out of nowhere. And then Cam Champ, triple bogey on 8, kind of shot himself down. So there was really not too much pressure on Rahm, and he made it a lot harder than it really had to be.
It was weird because he didn't even play that great, and he just kind of did what he had to do to win. Which I guess is what happens when you go off 5-1. The field's not that great. It was kind of weird too because I feel like it was actually kind of a cool setup, the course. I didn't hate the course of the event. It was just the field wasn't that good.
No, field wasn't great, and I didn't watch too much.
It wasn't super easy where it was a boring 25 under wins. It kind of could have been interesting. I feel like if the field was better, but it wasn't.
I think the one silver lining is that Rahm wins, which I think is great for the betting market in general when we get back to bigger events where more of the big names are there, because Rahm had gone off at these kind of short odds for a while, And then he kind of fell back into the mix where at the major and even at the Players, he was kind of like co-favorite at the top of the board at reasonable odds. But now that he's won, I think we're going to start seeing him at shorter odds again. And even with better fields, I think he's going to be at the top of the odds list, which creates more value for other top 15, top 20 players we can get better odds at. So kind of similar this week with if Rory wasn't here, it would really suck to bet this event because I think it's kind of a crapshoot between a lot of the guys in the top 50 of official world golf ranking is who you want to go with this week. But if Rory wasn't here, we'd be seeing real shit odds on most of those guys. So thank you, Rory, for showing up. Appreciated. But yeah, Matt, I mean, let's get into some TPC Potomac before we hit the odds list on FanDuel.
Yeah, we are in Potomac, Maryland, par 70, 7,160 yards, bank grass greens. Like you mentioned, Wells Fargo, if you look at the past history, it's kind of irrelevant this week. Rory is the defending champion. I was on him last year at this event, but we're not at Quail Hollow. We're at a new course, so we can kind of toss that to the side. It is a little disappointing that we don't see Quail Hollow this year because I kind of like that course and that event each year. It's always a good tournament. They get a pretty good field. And I feel like it's kind of worse this year at this venue, but we'll make it work with what we have. We have seen this in a PGA Tour rotation before. 2017, 2018 hosted the Quicken Loans Championship.
Right.
Pretty big contrast between the 2 years. Kyle Stanley won at -7 back in 2017. Did that predominantly with ball striking, but I mean, -7, that's for a winner. That's, a pretty tough event. I think it was that year, one of, if not the toughest tournament outside of major championships on the tour schedule that year. And then in 2018, Molinari won, but he was -21. There was a lot of rain that week, so the course played a lot wetter and softer, and it kind of made it more manageable for the guys.
He also dusted the field that year.
Yeah, he did. And that's what I was going to say, too. I mean, as low as that score is, if you look at the top 10, I think there was only like 8 guys that finished double digits under par. So it still played tough for most of the field. So I think a lot has changed since, 2018. And obviously the winning scores have gotten a lot lower on a week-to-week basis than we've seen historically. But it did play pretty tough back then. So we could be looking at a little bit of a tougher test this week. Based on previously how the course played and quotes from guys and stuff like that, it seems like there's going to be a big emphasis on hitting the fairway this week. A lot of the guys have mentioned that if you're not hitting the fairway, you're not really going to have a chance to make birdies. That's just the way the course works. There's only 2 par 5s in the course as is, a par 70, so it's going to be kind of tough to make your birdies out here. A lot of the holes people have talked about just kind of shooting to the middle of the green. The greens are typically firm. We'll see how the weather plays into factor, that this week, but it's going to be one of those courses where I think you have to be patient out there. A lot of guys have talked about that as well, being patient at this course, taking your pars, making the birdies when you have the chances, but really kind of more avoiding bogeys. So I'm going to be looking at, off the tee, favoring accuracy over distance. Again, we've talked about this before. It's a shorter course, so I wouldn't rely 100% on driving accuracy stats because a lot of these longer hitters are going to be able to club down on a lot of these holes. But because they're going to be clubbing down, the approaches are probably going to be coming from somewhere between 150 to 200 on the majority of the holes. So those are the ranges that I would focus on approach. So those are the main 2 stats that I would look at. I think tee to green is going to be very important this week. Putting on bent, you could take into consideration. But Kyle Stanley, I don't think – based on what I've seen, he didn't putt very well when he won here. So I don't know if it's absolutely necessary to do. So I'm going to be mostly looking at tee to green stats this week, accuracy off the tee, and then approach from that 150 to 175 and 175 to 200. And then guys who play shorter courses well, and maybe look at guys who can play in, a little bit tougher conditions and win events that aren't, birdie fest.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, I think this is not having a ton of course history to go off of. I think it's a lot of feel this week. Looking at guys that I think have good value on the odds list, which I think there's plenty of, considering, like I said, that there's not a ton of the best golfers in the world here. I think a long shot is certainly not out of the question. And Kyle Stanley winning last time an event was held here gives me some hope for guys that maybe potentially don't putt too well. So I think that kind of lines up for guys that are giving themselves the most chances and are good from those ranges, like you said. There's not a lot of short approach shots, so over 150, good iron players. So obviously strokes and approach, I'm just going to be keying in on this week as well, which certainly lines up for some familiar faces for me. But yeah, we'll get into that. I don't know. It's a field week. It's definitely a field week this week. I don't think you can kind of spin zone your way into a lot of plays this week. Like I said, without the course history knowledge, not a ton of data to back it up there. And I don't think there's a ton of really great course comparisons in terms of comp courses. So I think you just kind of got to fire away at the board and certainly not be afraid of some long shots. So
Hatton's in the field this week, right? Am I just making that up? No,
he is in the field.
Beautiful, because when you said you need patience around this course, he was the first name that came to my brain of let's find his feature group and just see how Tyrrell's handling the course. So there could be some good antics by him this week.
True. I thought you were going to spin zone that into maybe Tyrrell is a good bet this week.
I think he could be as well. I mean,
Yeah,
that's kind of his style. It's kind of his style, of course. But
I thought about him.
I also could see him doing typical Tyrrell things and just, blowing his lid. So could go either way.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into the odds list. I mean, we do have 6 guys under 30, which is not a large amount by any means. We are on FanDuel. I think there's a pretty good discrepancy between FanDuel and DraftKings this week for some players. But Rory McIlroy is your favorite this week at 7.5 to 1 on DraftKings, followed by Corey Connors sub 20 at 17 to 1. Tony Finau coming off a really nice Sunday where he seems like he's kind of got his game back, 21 to 1. Matthew Fitzpatrick also at 21, and then Abraham Answer and Keegan Bradley both at 28 to 1. So we'll kind of just start there with those top guys, and then we'll feed in a large group of guys under 50. But did you think about going to the top of the board this week, Matt, for anyone under 30?
No, we talked about this a little bit before. It's obviously tough. Our guy Abe is there. Whenever you talk about a course where, hitting fairways matters, that kind of is a course where we like him at. It's under 7,200 yards. Should be up his alley, but he doesn't look right to me. I mean, we're obviously big Abe guys. So we follow him close this week. He's kind of had a weird withdrawal before the Valero in San Antonio, which is like his hometown. He had a ton of family and fans there. So for him to back out of that was kind of strange. And then I feel like he was obligated to play in the Masters because it's the Masters. And I feel like last week was kind of an obligation too at the Mexico Open because he's Mexican and he's kind of the headliner. But he didn't play well in either of those. So he doesn't look good. And there was kind of the weird withdrawal. I'm thinking he's not 100% at this point. So I'm not going to take him.
Yeah. I mean, I stared long and hard at him, and it's going to be very upsetting, obviously, if he does play well.
Yeah.
But believe me, obviously, we're not afraid to potentially take him live if he does look good at some point. But it's like 28 to 1 actually doesn't feel like a horrible number for him, but he just really has looked so off. And he seems like he's getting a bunch of steam from the Twitter golf community. But betting him week in and week out is getting a little tiresome. Especially when it seems like he's not quite, fully himself. I don't know if it's the injury. I don't know if he's just kind of going through a bad spell, but his around the green game is atrocious. It made him almost unbettable because he's not getting up and down. Even his putter has been weak. It's just a lot of the things that he needs to be good to win a tournament on the PGA Tour, he's not competing at a high level at. So I think in theory, this course does set up well for him. He does seem to play well on these shorter courses where he can kind of use his driver to an advantage because he is typically accurate off the tee with his driver. But the other parts of his game just haven't been crisp enough for him to warrant betting him to win the tournament. So it's really difficult to say out loud. And I think if he does look good on Thursday, I'm just going to hope that some of the other guys at the top of the board play well too, and maybe we can jump in live at a decent number. But I'm not going to do it this week. I think there's enough reasons to go a little bit further down the board and kind of stack your card in the mid tier with other guys that have actually played better than him. I mean,
Yeah,
you're
I agree.
you're kind
I
of
think
going off his like pedigree if you're betting him at 28-1 when he hasn't played well. But I don't think it's enough this week.
I agree. I think the next group that you go down and you start seeing guys in the 30s and 40s, it's guys who have, like you said, played better, and I think they have still, a good chance of winning. So I think that's a good spot to start.
Right. And I will say, I texted you guys this on Sunday morning, I believe. Finau was looking incredible tee to green. He was
Yeah,
just
you
missing
did.
a shit ton of putts all week. And of course, he decides to show up and start making a ton of putts. And he played about as well as he had, throughout the week. He just started to make birdies. And he had that eagle later on in the round. And of course, now where if Finau finishes poorly on Sunday, I think you get him in the 30s. But instead, you get him at 21. So I would have taken him, I think, if he was in the 30s, but I'm not still, fully convinced that Finau's worth a bet at 20-1 really ever, just because of his win equity.
Yeah.
And that's not really a shot at Finau. Obviously he's gotten the monkey off his back in terms of being able to win tournaments, but him as the third guy to the top of the board doesn't really entice me as much. And him playing well on Sunday kind of ruined that. And that kind of similarly with Corey Connors and Matt Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Anytime I see them as favorites, I just can't do it. I mean, I think they both set up well here too. Connors in a positional type course where you can kind of take advantage of his long irons as well. And Fitzpatrick has been really consistent for the most part. And I think this course probably sets up well for him too. A short course where he can – and he's actually gotten longer this year where I don't think the driver is even necessarily a weakness, but – 21-1, not enticing enough. So I think it was pretty easy to kind of mosey on down to 30 and below. And Keegan Bradley, for one, being under 30-1. I don't think he started there, but him being under 30-1.
I've seen a lot of people on him too. I mean, I might take him for a first round leader. I'm in. But
I'm in for that.
I just don't trust Keegan to win a golf tournament, and at that number, it kind of seems absurd.
Right. All right, so we're in for a Keegan first-round leader. Probably nothing more than that. So let's get into the more enticing numbers. We got 12 guys between 30 and 50. Russell Henley, Seamus Power, Tyrrell Hatton between 32 and 36. Gary Woodland is also at 36-1. Paul Casey, Mark Leishman, Max Homa, Cameron Young are all at 41-1 on FanDuel currently. And then Patrick Reed, Siwoo Kim, Webb Simpson, Sergio Garcia, and Matt Kuchar all between 44 and 50 on FanDuel. So that's kind of a pretty good range of players there. Obviously, tons of wins in that range of guys that have won PGA Tour events. Matt, where did you start in this section, and why was it Max Homa?
I do have Max Homa this week. Are you on board Max Homa?
I am on board with Max Homa.
Yeah, perfect. Well, we talk about this a lot where he's actually Boss.
There we go.
Boss is in on Max Homa as well. I love that.
Carry on.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I think Max Homa, we've talked about a lot how he's just kind of undervalued in general because he has a pretty good resume and he plays well, and for whatever reason, he's just not given the respect week in and week out in the odds list. But I think there's a lot to like about him this week. He is in his last 24 rounds, 10th in strokes gained total in courses under 7,200 yards. Last 24 rounds is also 12th off the tee, 17th in approach, and 8th in ball striking. He was 48th at the Masters, but before that, he was 13th at the Players, 17th at the API, 10th at the Genesis, and 14th at the Waste Management. So, he's playing good golf. He's a good course fit here. He's won at some of these courses that are a little bit tougher to win at in his career. We could throw away the Fortinet that he won this year. That was kind of a birdie fest. But before that, he won at Riviera. He won at the Wells Fargo at Quail Hollow. Those are some courses that take some patience. They're not like birdie fest. You're going to have to, make your pars where you can and avoid your bogeys. So he's won events like that before. And I think he's in this field. If you take away Rory, really, he kind of has had the same win equity as most of these guys. So I think that he's kind of a no-brainer at that number.
100%. And yeah, like you said, I mean, he's played 7 times in 2022, and he has 5 top 20s. I mean, he's played very consistently. He didn't play great at the Masters, but I don't think, you need to correlate that at all to playing TPC Potomac. Obviously, we haven't seen him recently. Did he play in the Zurich?
I
Yeah,
to
he
be
played
honest,
with Gooch.
no,
Didn't he play with Gooch?
yeah, Homa played with Gooch in the Zurich.
We'll just say this: there's no statistics to back it up, but Gooch fucked him.
Yeah. Well, actually, early on, that's definitely true. I was following that along. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't know how the whole week played out. That's kind of a weird event anyway.
No, I know, but it's just we haven't seen him since the Masters, but he did play at the Zurich. It's not like he's disappeared off the face of the earth. He's still obviously in good form, and so I'm liking his current form coming in. Is what I'm getting at. 2022, he's played very consistently, and just based on his last 36 rounds in this field, he is 11th in strokes gained approach. He's 20th in strokes gained off the tee, 11th tee to green, 12th in ball striking. And he's kind of just turned himself into a very well-rounded player, which I think at a course like this, you're going to need to be able to kind of do all those things. We need him to be accurate off the tee. We need him to be hitting his long irons well. We know he can make clutch putts, and we know he can kind of grind out a course as well. So, I kind of like all those things. And, it's not a Quail Hollow, but obviously he is a former champion of this event as well. So I think that's something to be said about Max, and I think he's a good play this week. And at 41 to 1, I thought that was a no-brainer. So glad we're all on the same page there. That was probably one of the easiest picks of the week for me, and I'm considering him a one and done. But
I put him in a one and done right now.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Well, I'll get into my next pick, which shouldn't be too much of a shock to anyone. But Russell Henley getting some value on FanDuel. He's at 32 to 1 on FanDuel. He's at 20 on DraftKings. I saw someone made the joke this week. I'm sorry that I don't remember who it was, but it was like, does DraftKings think that Russell Henley is Colin Morikawa? Like, why is he at 20 to 1? But obviously, I love Russell Henley's game, so I don't need much convincing otherwise. And then similar to Max, been extremely consistent in 2022. Obviously, blew the Sony Open to Hideki, which was heartbreaking, and I'm still kind of getting over that because I was counting my dollars on the back nine when he was up 5. But obviously, runner-up there, and then 14th at the Amex, 13th at Arnold Palmer, 13th at the Players. He had a string of made cuts going all the way back to the Open Championship in July before he missed the cut at the RBC Heritage, which was I considered an anomaly because he lost 4 strokes putting, which is not typical of Henley at all. If you look at his other performances dating back to you'd have to go back to October before he lost anywhere near that many strokes on the green. He's an above average putter, and his irons are still immaculate. Over his last 36 rounds, he's first in this field in strokes gained approach, second tee to green, third in ball striking. His short game has actually been pretty spectacular. He's 5th in strokes gained around the green. And in this field, it's hard to find a player that kind of statistically lines up as well as Russell Henley. That being said, I get it. He's clearly not the greatest closer, but I'm willing to take that on, that Henley will eventually get it done again. And at a 32 to 1 number in this field, I think it's a pretty decent price for a guy who I am pretty confident will be at least relevant in terms of being inside the top 20 come Sunday. Whether that means he'll make a run at winning or he'll fall out to tie 33rd, that remains to be seen. But I like Henley a lot, and I think he'll be on my top 20 card as kind of a – I wouldn't say anything is safe with Russell Henley, but I think that's a confident top 20 play for me. So him and Homa where I started my card, Matt. Do you have anyone else under 50?
Yeah, I was between actually Hatton and Gary Woodland, and I ended up going with Gary Woodland. I think that he's kind of found something in his game. He's starting to play a lot better lately. His last 24 rounds, he's 5th in the field in strokes gained total and tee to green, 9th in ball striking, and 3rd in approach. So last week he finished 26th, couldn't make a putt at all. I think he lost like 5 strokes on the green. He gained over 9 tee to green though, so that's a positive. He did miss the cut at the Masters, but prior to that, he was 8th at Valero, 21st at Valspar, missed cut at the Players, 5th at Arnold Palmer, and 5th at Honda. So he's kind of, back to playing pretty well. Obviously, don't love the missed cuts at the Masters and the Players, but compared to what we've seen from him like 6 months before, where he was completely lost. It kind of seems like he's found something back in his game. And I do kind of like that some of those events that I listed, like the Arnold Palmer, the Honda, like those are events that are not really easy events. It's kind of similar. The Florida Swing is one of the tougher stretches in the golf season of, non-majors, of course. And if this event's going to be one of those tests that it's not going to be a ton of birdies and you're going to kind of have to grind your way around, I like him more in that type of event, I think. So I'm going to take a shot at him this week, 36-1. I don't feel like that's a terrible number. Obviously, it's bad considering a couple of months ago you could have got him at like 80, but now that his game's kind of rounded back into form, I still feel like it's pretty solid in this field.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like he's kind of played his way back into, being in a more respectable range on the odds list, and for good reason. I mean, he's definitely played a lot better golf, and I think his consistency has been a little bit more admirable, and obviously still hasn't quite gotten there in the big events yet, but that shouldn't be scary at a tournament like the Wells Fargo Championship, where, like I said, we only have 15 of the top 50 players in the world here, and when he's on, he's as good as they get. So I like that. And for my next pick, I'm actually similarly looking past poor performances at the Masters and the Players. I'm going to take Cameron Young at 41-1. He is new to my card. So what's up, Cameron? Welcome aboard. And speaking of consistency in 2022, he, besides the Players and the Masters, the guy's worst performances back at the Amex, where he finished 40th. Other than that, 20th at the Farmers, 26th at the Phoenix Open, 2nd at the Genesis, 16th at Honda, 13th at the Arnold Palmer. And then even after those two missed cuts at the bigger events, he came back and played very well at the RBC Heritage, where he finished 3rd. So it's tough to find anyone as locked in as Cameron Young. It's crazy because we may see somewhat of a grinded out type week, but I still think you need to make birdies. And in this field, he's first in birdies are better gain and first in opportunities gain over his last 36 rounds. And I like that in combination with that, he's 30th in bogeys avoided. So he's taking shots. He's hitting his irons extremely well. And he's been really good off the tee. He actually is really long. He's 7th in driving distance in this field, which, I don't think he's going to need particularly this week. But if he's giving himself a little bit shorter of approach shots, I think that will definitely help. So well-rounded game, young guy that is clearly started to make a name for himself this year. 2 top 5s in the last 3 months, I think, is worth noting. And like I said, the consistency has been there. So I kind of liked hammering this section and taking 3 guys under 50 and going from there. So Cameron Young will be my last addition under 50, and we'll go from there. But, yeah, I think plenty of intriguing names in here, Matt. So did you actually add anyone else other than Woodland under 50, or are we moving on?
I have 2 guys like in that 50 to 60 range. I do like the Cameron Young pick. I got to say, he's really been impressive this year. I remember like the first couple times he popped up, I was like, oh, like maybe it's just one of those guys that get hot for a couple weeks stretch. But he's been consistent pretty much all year. So I got to give it to him. He's a nice young player.
Yeah. 24 years old. I mean, we're seeing it where these guys just aren't scared. Come on PGA Tour and can immediately compete. And we've seen it even in better fields where he's competed, obviously not the biggest events at the Players of the Masters, but even back at the Genesis. I mean, if it wasn't for Joaquin Niemann just absolutely running away with it, he would have been right there.
Yeah.
Competing with the likes of Adam Scott and other big name players. So I like it. But as I did mention in the beginning, I think longer shots, guys over 50-1, I think certainly will have a shot this week. So
yeah, I will say I didn't take any of them, but right below 50, there was a stretch of like Patrick Reed, Siwoo Kim, Webb Simpson,
and Sergio.
Yeah, well, I see him at 50 here, but did he move back down?
No, he's at 50.
Oh, he's at 50. Yeah. So but those 3 I considered because I think you can make a case for them. But Reed, my concern with him is he's starting to play better, but he's still not completely there, and I don't trust his driver. If this is a course that like demands accuracy, this is not really his type of event. And it's weird. Like, he's not a long hitter, but he really does play those longer courses a lot better, where a lot of guys are missing greens, and you kind of have to grind your way around and go up and down because he's good around the green and with the putting. I I just can't really get there with him this week. And I think Webb is kind of one of those guys similar to Abe, where like on a short, under 7,200 yard course, he's someone that you could always kind of consider. But he hasn't really looked particularly great lately either. And I'm just not a Webb guy. So
Yeah, fair enough. And yeah, I think those four guys in a row, Reed, Siwoo, Webb, and Sergio, I mean, certainly could all be in play. I mean, Matt Kuchar being at 50 is kind of surprising. I guess he's kind of played his way into being back into a
that's crazy
spot. But no, thank you for Matt
well,
Kuchar.
I am taking Sergio.
You are?
Yeah. So Sergio.
Kyle Stanley's going to give you some hope.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you don't have to putt. Although I will say Sergio's actually been kind of under the radar, putting like fairly well lately. But I'm not banking on that for him this week. I will say he's fourth off the tee his last 24 rounds. Third in bogey avoidance. He's one of those guys that plays the courses where you kind of have to manage your way around and avoid bogeys better. He hasn't been. It's weird because his approach has not been good. He's typically like a really good tee to green, and he's been great off the tee. His approach numbers have just not been good at all. But despite that, he's still been playing pretty well. He's 23rd at the Masters, 26th at the Players, 38th API, 39th Genesis. I mean, nothing that like blows you out of the water, but there is some consistency there where he's been kind of making cuts and been fairly in the mix, which is different than what we saw from him like a year or two ago, where he kind of was missing a ton of cuts and stuff like that. So it's weird that his irons haven't been great and he's still playing pretty consistently, which gives me hope that if he turns around his irons, which have historically been really good, he could potentially be in the mix to win one of these things. So I'm going to take him this week. I feel like it's kind of one of those events where a lot of guys have a shot to win, and I like him at 50. I think it's a pretty good number.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not shocked. I knew you were going to at least have one of Reed, Siwoo, and Sergio on the card. So definitely not shocking to have Sergio on there. And yeah, I mean, all your points make sense. I think he's one of those guys when he's on and he can make a few putts, he's definitely going to be in the mix. And I think he's kind of relishing. He's going to be relishing any opportunity he can get to win events. I mean, he's getting a little bit older. I think he's got to he's going to have, I'm not going to say limited opportunities, but the opportunities are going to start to dwindle in terms of him being able to win events. So
yeah,
as we saw for like Lee Westwood, like it happened quick.
Yeah,
even Matt Kuchar. I mean, I'm not going to really compare those guys to Sergio. I think Sergio is just kind of a step above. Although Westwood in his prime is also
but I think even it's fair to compare him to like a guy like Fowler or something like that, where like you could see it. Not to take a shot.
Yeah, but Fowler's not old. He just sucks right now.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess, but or like a Rose, Justin Rose, maybe.
True. Yep.
Yeah, got guys like that. Where
yeah, we might get the Ricky Fowler later on. So, but yeah, we're above 50. You have Sergio, Jason Day, Johnny Vegas, Keith Mitchell, all at 55 to 1 on FanDuel. We got Brian Harmon, Sepp Straka, Adam Long at 65 to 1. Matt Jones, Doug Gim, Joel Damon, all at 70. We got a slew of guys at 75, and then we're at 90 and above. So anyone 75 and below, Matt, that you like this week? Obviously, you just added Sergio. I'm having a tough time in this section. I'm considering a few guys, but I may be going a little bit deeper.
Well, let me help talk you into a little guy I like to call Keith Mitchell, who's sitting there at 55 to 1. Third off the tee in his last 24 rounds. But I'm surprised no one's like brought this up besides me a month ago. And I'm going to bring it up again because still no one's talking about it. Keith Mitchell is like very good on short courses. Courses under 7,200 yards, he's very good. And I don't understand why it's not like something that people talk about. He's third in the field in the last 24 rounds, courses under 7,200 yards. So you look at his last events on courses under 7,200, 9th at the Honda, 12th at Pebble, 7th at Sony, and then in November, if you go a little bit further back, he was 12th at the RSM. So he just plays these short courses well, which like I get that given the fact that he's like long off the tee, you don't consider him like in that category of like, oh, let's play him at a short course, but he clubs down. He's able to find the fairway very much on these type of courses and puts himself in the position to play well. So I like him a lot this week. And this is also an event that's, we don't know how easy or difficult it's going to play, but by no means is it like a complete birdie fest. And he kind of like the courses that he has success at too, are like the Florida swing where you see the winning scores kind of in like -9 to like the -13, 14 range. He played well at Quail Hollow last year where the winning score was like -10. So he kind of plays a difficult course as well too. So I like Keith Mitchell this week. I think 55 is a pretty good number given how he's played this year, which is pretty well. So I will be on board this week, and I hope you're going to join me after that.
I mean, you make some great points. It is alarming that people don't really talk about him on the shorter courses. So I think at the very least I will add a top 20 on Keith Mitchell.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, because I think, and he's played really good golf in the past 6 months. So I think Keith is certainly worth a look this week. I have a few too many names over 70. Where I don't know if I'm going to have room for Keith at the end of the day for my outright card. But if he's in the mix on Sunday, none of my guys are, I'll certainly be rooting for him. So
I appreciate that.
So other interesting names, I think Sepp Straka has played really well, and he hasn't really moved up the odds list. Again, he's another kind of long hitter that maybe doesn't profile for a course like this, but I thought he could be an interesting play this week. I've kind of played my way off of Joel Damon. I think should probably be at a little bit better number than 70. Although I guess in this field it's maybe not completely unwarranted. But yeah, for whatever reason, this group between 55 and 75 on FanDuel just didn't really get me to bite on too many guys.
You don't like Two Glove Rye?
Two Glove Aaron Rye?
Yeah.
No. I think I've dabbled maybe once or twice in Aaron Rye and it didn't pan out too well. So but I mean, he's a nice young guy. We'll give him that. Anyone else you considered before we get into the true long shots?
No, no, not in this range.
All right, so then we're 75 and above. I mean, I guess I was kind of including the 75s in that last group, so I should say that Matthew Neesmith being at 75 frustrates me a bit because obviously if he wins, I'm not on him. It's going to be pretty frustrating. But on DraftKings, he is at 100, so that makes it a little bit more appealing for me, and I may have to do that because he's got – obviously, I've always loved him because of the way he looked on paper and more or less than what his finishes ended up being. But he's kind of started to groom his game to be a little bit more well-rounded. I mean,
he's getting some steam.
He's definitely gaining some steam.
I feel like people need to give you complete credit because I'm now starting to see like some people like consistently being like, oh, how about like Neesmith? Like you were leading the charge like probably a year and a half ago, Matthew Neesmith.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been a long time coming. I mean, he mixes in a top 10 every now and again and then kind of disappears. And I mean, it's kind of the same old shit, to be honest. But I think one of these weeks he will pop off to win. I wanted to say he's been a little bit more consistent this year, but it's not completely true. But the flashes are still there. I mean, third at the Valspar.
He must be because like this, he was going off like before at like crazy numbers, like 240 to 1. Like there's something that's happened that now all of a sudden he's like a respectable 100 to 1 or under guy. Yeah,
and I think it is because he's become a little bit more well-rounded. I mean, you look at him at the RBC Heritage, his most recent performance, he finished 12th. He gained in every category except for putting, where he only lost 0.7 strokes. And putter can definitely be a weakness of his, as can his around the green game. But over his last 36 rounds, I mean, he's kind of gotten it all together. He's 18th in tee to green in this field, 14th on approach, 37th in strokes gained off the tee, and then a respectable 63rd in strokes gained around the green, and putting 78th. So, I'm not going to say he's completely found his short game. But when his irons are on, he's a freak. And I think that a lot of these approaches coming from over 150 yards, I think will definitely be a benefit for him. So I'm glad that I've kind of caught this number at 100 to 1 rather than the 75. And yeah, the weeks that Neesmith plays well with his irons, he is 100% going to be in the mix. We saw that at the Valspar, where I would have been extremely upset because I had him for a top 20 play at like plus 700, and he was very much in the mix, finished third. So without rambling on too much more on Matthew Neesmith, I think he's a really good young player that has a ton of talent, and the potential for him winning a PGA Tour event is certainly there. And yeah, like you said, we're starting to see him creep up more on the odds list, especially in events where a lot of the elite players aren't in attendance. If he's feeling it, he can definitely get hot. So that is another add to my card because he wasn't originally on it at 75. But now that we are over 75 on FanDuel, speaking, we got a slew of guys at 90 and a ton of guys at up between 100 and 120. So I'll let you lead off for anyone over 90, Matt.
I have a guy I'm like still kind of considering at 90, and I just don't know if I'm going to get there or not. But we both kind of like him, Cameron Davis.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like he has good game. Like I like his game a lot, and there's been times when I've like been on him and he's come close. I think it was like last year at the PGA West where like he came in second or third or whatever it was, and he kind of made a run on Sunday and was in the mix. And then he beat me at last summer he beat Neiman in the playoff in the one tournament. I can't think of the name right now. Rocket Mortgage, I believe. And I wasn't on him, and I was pissed. And I'm like, God, the Cameron Davis guy. And now he's sitting here at 90-1 in a field that's like not that great. And it kind of feels like someone could steal one. And I'm kind of considering it, but I don't know if I'm going to get there or not.
Yeah, well, hey, it's a good year for the Camerons. Obviously, Cam Smith, Cam Young, Cam Champ for a little bit at the Masters and last week. So there could be something there with the Camerons. Hot year for Camerons, and there's a shit ton of Camerons on the PGA Tour, which is surprising for a name that I don't consider that popular. Also,
yeah, I don't think I know any Camerons personally.
No, neither do I.
And there's Cameron Tringali on the tour too. Wow, yeah, there's a lot of Camerons.
A lot of Camerons. So it could be the year of Camerons. I'm not going to be taking Cameron Davis. I'm going to be not taking any other Camerons besides Cameron Young. But a couple of familiar names that I am going back to this week in some fashion. Denny McCarthy and Luke List for completely different reasons, obviously. I've mentioned this about Luke List, and it hasn't come to fruition yet. But I kind of just feel like he's completely found himself. And although he's missed his last two cuts and really played poorly since he did win at the Farmers, I'm kind of sticking to my guns here that this could be, just a year where Luke List, when he's playing well, can win golf tournaments. And I think that win at the Farmers is something that he now has in his back pocket. And even with his poor performances of late, statistically, he still lines up very well. I mean, his irons are still elite. He's fifth strokes gained approach in this field. His driver is a monster. He's seventh in strokes gained off the tee, and he's first in ball striking and first in tee to green in this field. Like I mentioned the last time I picked him, which I believe was, I'm not 100% sure, but I know it was a bad finish for sure. But it still rings true. His around the green game has gotten extremely, extremely good. I mean, he's top 10 in strokes gained around the green in this field. And as we know, his putter is a complete atrocity at times. So going back to the Kyle Stanley, has one on his course, another atrocious putter. If Luke List has his irons going, I think he's certainly in play. And at 90-1, I really don't have any reason to not take him at 90-1. So that was my reasoning on Luke List. And then Denny McCarthy, anytime you take Denny McCarthy, I think you really just have to believe that he's going to putt the lights out, which I think is certainly a possibility considering that's what he does. He's still elite as it gets in that he's third in strokes gained putting in this field. And his short game has been great. And on a shorter course, I think it kind of gives him at least he gives him less of a disadvantage. We'll say that. So I like Denny this week. I don't know if I'm going to get there for an outright, but I think I will take him in the top 20 market.
Well, I have something for you that might get you there.
What's that?
I'm not taking him, but I did see he's like a resident here.
He's a Maryland guy.
He grew up right around here. This is like one of the courses he's most familiar with.
That'll do it. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I knew that because actually my buddy lives down in Maryland, and one of his friends is actually close with Denny. So maybe if he wins this week, we'll get him on the pod at some point. So
yeah, that would be kind of cool.
So now at that point, I can't not take him. So Denny, Yeah, it was
Yeah,
kind
it
of
could be like a good way to get him on. Like, hey man, I took you last week.
yeah, it was
Either
inevitable.
way, like, hey, I took you. Like, you shit the bed. Maybe you can come on the podcast, or you won and I was on you.
There we go. You won me some money, and now you pay it forward some more and come join the podcast. So yeah, those are my two guys under 100. I have a couple of thoughts over 100, but I think a lot of value in this range right around here. So did you add anyone down here?
No, I just have one more guy on the outright that's a deeper.
Yeah, well, well, we talked about this, and you've been preaching it on Twitter, so you might as well just throw it out there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's funny though because me and Brian Kirshner said that he was on board. Shout out Brian Kirshner, and then I've seen a lot of Twitter action from him this week, and not one mention of our guy Doc Redmond. So I don't know if he's on board or not. I'm going to wait to see till the card comes out, or turn into Tap and Birdie. But we could have like a big time,
He's got to fucking hold that. He's got to hold up his end of the bargain there.
Yeah, he has to. I mean, we were like, we're leading the charge, and now he's talking about like, Sadoshi Kodaira and not Doc Redmond, and I don't know what's going on there. But
I'm on Doc Redmond as well.
Doc Redmond, 150 to 1 seems like a great number. We've talked about this a little bit recently. His game is trending in the right direction. He was very good, promising young player like a year and a half ago, and everyone was on board on him, and he was definitely going to get a win soon. He fell completely off the face of the earth and was missing cuts left and right. It was horrible. But now he's kind of back. He's had some good performances. He was 26th at the Players. I don't have all of his finishes right up in front of me, but he had another good finish around there as well. And then we saw him make the cut at the Heritage. Him and Ryder made like a run at that team event. I actually took them at 190 to 1 that week. And, we don't have all the stats in front of us, and I don't mean to throw anyone under the bus, but Sam Ryder did let him down a little bit. So they still finished in third. Who knows what he would have done with a little bit better of a partner. But I'm going to be back on Doc this week because I feel like he's back.
Yeah, I'm in. I mean, you were saying that he had another good finish. I mean, he's shown signs. The finishes haven't really been there, but he's only missed 2 cuts in the last 10 events. So we'll give him that. His best finish is 26th at the Players. He did finish 25th at the Farmers back in January as well. But he's kind of been a little bit up and down, but his putter's been really good. We know he can get hot with his irons. And at this course where I think he will be clubbing down a bit, hopefully he can kind of keep his ball in play off the tee. And from there, I think Doc is he's going to be on my card as long as he's going to be in these nice, deep 150 positions, which may not last too much longer if he does keep showing that he has this elite skill set in the bag. He just doesn't always, hold on to it for 4 days. So I'll be joining you with Doc. And I am heavily considering tossing a little action on Ricky Fowler in some capacity. I just feel like
this is out of nowhere because last event you told me like there's no reason to bet on Ricky Fowler, and then he played horribly. But now you're back in, and I've seen a lot of people this week that are back in.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no good reason. So I know.
Apparently, actually, I did see though.
What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Come on.
One telling stat that he's like, despite playing like complete shit, he's actually been really good from like 175 to 200 with his irons. I think he's like third in the field last 24 rounds. But
okay, yeah, that's what I said. Wait, what?
Yeah, he's like really good with 175 to 200 in like,
Pardon?
24 rounds. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been bad with his wedges. So
yeah, and there's not really like it's not a wedge course. So, but that being said, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. When you get down to that number, it's like,
that's
I'm not gonna like laugh at Ricky Fowler and then like go and be like, hey, you should take Bo Hostler. You know what I mean? Like, whoever you pick down there, you're taking a shot at them. There's reasons for everybody. They're not very good because they're at that number, but
no, yeah.
The judgment-free zone once you get down here.
No, 100%. It's a judgment-free zone. The only thing that sucks, about trying to hope and hop on this bandwagon that he's going to get it back together is that obviously he hasn't shown that he's even fucking close. He's missed 5 cuts in his last 7 events. And the really discouraging part is that his putter, which used to be a lightning rod, has been bad. I mean, he did gain 5 strokes at the Honda, but other than that, he's lost multiple strokes in 5 of his last 8 events, which is really unlike him. So I'm kind of hoping that it's been the swing change. He's going to continue to get back in a groove at some point. So yeah, taking him outright is probably silly, but I've yet to get let go of the fact that Ricky Fowler is never going to be good again. So in a field like this, I think it's worth a shot, and I'm going to do it. Yeah. So just a brief recap before we get into one and done thoughts. And actually, I guess before we get into that, boss, what else are you joining on besides your Max Homa play?
Yep, I'll be on Max Homa with you guys. Like you said, first click, easiest click of the week for me. I'm on Cam Young with you, good sir. I like what he's been doing this season, I should say. And I think this sets up another week that he could play well. A name I'm surprised you didn't throw out, probably considered, was Seamus Power.
Yeah, I should have at least mentioned him because he was under consideration this week.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, he's been playing well this year as well. I think that continues this week, so I like him. The trend you're seeing is that mid-range. I just peppered the mid-range, and we're going to see how this works out. Matthew, I was on Keith Mitchell before your nice speech there, but I'm gassed up about it now.
I like that.
So we'll be on Killer Keith.
Let's go.
And then a guy that didn't get mentioned, but not surprisingly, not really our guy, but Sepp Straka. Having a good season, obviously got a win, but has still continued to play well. Really the only blemishes, I believe, was the Masters was so-so, and the Players wasn't that good at all either. But, the weather there, I can throw that one out easily in my brain. So I have Sepp Straka. And then as well, first round leaders, you mentioned Keegan. I like that shot much better than the outright price. And then Russell Henley is just the permanent fixture on the first round leader card. So
beautiful.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I did mention Sepp Straka briefly. I said he's a little undervalued. But yeah, I think he is undervalued. So 65-1, whatever number you can get him at, I think it's a solid play. So, all right, got some team plays in action this week. Love those. So yeah, from outright perspective, I got Henley, Homa, and Young under 50-1, and then I got Luke List, Denny McCarthy, Neesmith, and Redmond. So I don't think I can really add Ricky, or I'm gonna have to make some decisions towards the bottom of the card whether I want to
just move them over to a top 20 or 30 or something like that. A little more realistic. Still gonna get a decent price at that number.
For Ricky?
Yeah, for Ricky.
All right. Yeah, no, I mean you can make the same argument for all of them really.
Sure.
So, and obviously, if you know me, I'm going to be playing them in top 20s in the top 20 market anyway. So I don't think I'm going to add anyone off my outright card onto my top 20 this week, which I don't typically always do. I sometimes throw in a little outlier there every now and again. But I like the Keegan. Obviously, Keegan first round leader thought. I think we'll all be on board on that. And Russell Henley, yeah. If you're going to bet him outright, definitely bet him first round leader as well. So I like those. And then one and done, I do have Homa locked in currently for the Mayo Cup. And I like it. I do like it. I don't know if there's I don't want to overthink it. I've been pretty good this year not overthinking it too much. But I do like getting a guy who's maybe a little under-owned. But I think I would maybe pivot to Cam Young, and I don't know what the difference will be in ownership there. So
I don't think Homa is going to be too overly owned this week. I think Corey Connors is going to be the biggest one and done guy.
Yeah, you would think, but he's also been used a ton already. He's in terms of availability, he's 58%.
Oh wow!
And just in comparison to Homa and Young, they're.
I think a lot of people use Keegan too.
What?
I think a lot of people are going to use Keegan.
Yeah, I agree with that, Matt.
All right, so then who do you guys got? I know you guys got you got Homa too.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go with Fitzpatrick. I think he's probably already been used a decent amount, but he's been playing really well. So I think this course sets up for him. Again, not to reiterate it and beat a dead horse, but my one and done hopes are dead and buried. So take that for what it's worth.
All right, take it for what it's worth. looking to get back inside the top 100. So see if we can get there.
Attaboy.
All right.
Full
Thank
team
you for
ahead.
joining us.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I'll go through my card real quick.
Oh yeah, do your card.
Woodland, Homa, Sergio, Keith Mitchell, and Doc Redman. Probably some sort of combination of them in finishing positions as well. And then we'll get you to the first round later. So definitely do Keegan. I'll probably hop in on Henley with you guys as well. But yeah, we'll see the full card on Twitter tomorrow, I guess.
Beautiful. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, a little 2-week break, but we're back and some exciting golf ahead. So we look forward to it. Appreciate it.